Hey Reddit, I wanted to share my story about how life can take some pretty unexpected turns and how sometimes finding yourself takes a lot longer and more effort than you'd expect. If you told 25-year-old me where I'd be today, I would have laughed in your face or maybe just stared blankly because I had zero sense of direction back then. So let's rewind to when I was 25. At the time, I was working as a supervisor in a tech support call center. It wasn't the worst job in the world, but it wasn't exactly inspiring either. My days were filled with answering escalated calls, calming angry customers, and trying not to let the monotony drive me completely insane. I made just enough money to scrape by, and that was about it, stuck in survival mode. When I look back at that time, I realize I wasn't really living. I was just existing. I'd graduated from a local university, majoring in pre-med with the dream of becoming a doctor. But that dream fizzled out when I flunked out of the program. I'd worked so hard to get into pre-med only to completely burn out. And after that, I had no plan, no backup dream, nothing. I gained a lot of weight during those years, topping out at over 300 pounds. Between the stress, the long hours at the call center, and my lack of motivation, I turned to food for comfort. My life was a cycle of work, eat, sleep, repeat. Weekends were spent binge-watching TV, scrolling through social media, and pretending I didn't feel completely stuck. The wake-up call. I'll be honest, I can't pinpoint one specific moment that made me want to change. There wasn't some grand epiphany or life-altering event. It was more like a slow, growing frustration with the way things were. One day, while scrolling aimlessly through my phone, I saw an old photo of myself from college. I looked happy, healthier. It hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't even recognize the person I'd become. That realization didn't magically fix everything, but it planted a seed. I started poking around for new job opportunities, partly because I wanted to escape the monotony of the call center, and partly because I hoped it might help me feel like I was moving forward, even just a little. A chance opportunity, as luck would have it, a friend of my dad's had a lead on a job opening. It wasn't anything glamorous, but it paid better than my current role, and I figured, why not? I got the job, and with a slightly more stable income, I decided it was time to tackle another area of my life, my health. That's when I signed up for a boxing gym. Starting at the boxing gym felt like a huge leap for me. I wasn't the kind of guy you'd expect to see throwing punches at a heavy bag. At over 300 pounds, I was out of shape, unmotivated, and carrying years of self-doubt. But something about that gym just clicked. Walking in for the first time was intimidating as hell. The smell of sweat, the rhythmic thud of gloves hitting bags, the trainers barking out instructions, it was overwhelming. I half expected someone to look at me and say, "What are you doing here?" But no one did. Instead, they welcomed me in, told me to wrap my hands, and set me up with a beginner's class. The first steps were humbling. That first workout was brutal. 10 minutes in, I was drenched in sweat and gasping for air, wondering if I'd made a mistake. But somehow, I made it through. And when I left that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Boxing became my outlet. It wasn't just about the physical exercise. It was about the mental release. For an hour a day, I wasn't thinking about my dead-end job or the weight I was carrying, literally and figuratively. I was just focused on the rhythm of the workout. Jab, cross, hook, slip, progress, and confidence. Over the next 2 years, I stuck with it. I cleaned up my diet, started tracking my meals, and watched as the weight began to melt off. By the time I turned 27, I'd lost about 100 pounds. I felt like a completely different person. My energy levels were higher, I was more confident, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was actually in control of my life. I wasn't just existing anymore, I was living. The setback. Then, just as I was hitting my stride, disaster struck. During one of my workouts, I pushed myself too hard and tore a muscle in my back. The pain was excruciating, and my doctor told me I needed to take a break from boxing until I healed. At first I thought, okay, no problem. I'll rest for a few weeks and then get back to it. But weeks turned into months, and before I knew it, I'd fallen completely off the wagon. Without the structure of my workouts, old habits started creeping back in. I turned to food for comfort, stopped paying attention to my diet, and watched helplessly as the weight piled back on. By the time I hit 28, I'd regained 60 of the 100 pounds I'd lost. Stagnation and self-doubt. That was a dark time for me. I stayed at my job because it paid well, but it was sucking the life out of me. Every day felt the same. Go to work, come home, zone out in front of the TV, repeat. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd failed, that I'd tasted progress and let it slip through my fingers. Looking back, I realized I was stuck in a cycle of self-loathing. I wanted to change, but the idea of starting over felt overwhelming. By the time I was 28, I felt like I'd undone all the progress I'd made. The weight gain, the stagnation at work, the constant self-doubt, it all came crashing down on me. I'd start each week with some half-hearted plan to get back on track, but I never stuck with it. I was stuck in this cycle of self-pity, telling myself things like, why bother? You'll just fail again. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. It gives you two choices. You can stay there, or you can start climbing. A small but powerful decision. One day, while aimlessly scrolling through my company's internal job board, I saw a listing for a position in a different department. It wasn't a huge leap career-wise, but it involved learning new skills and offered the opportunity to travel. Something about it sparked my interest. Maybe it was the idea of getting out of my current rut, or the thought of trying something different, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. I applied for the position and got it. That small change, just switching departments, became the catalyst I needed to start turning things around. Travel and new experiences. The new role came with a lot of travel, which was both exciting and terrifying. I wasn't used to stepping out of my comfort zone, but meeting new people and seeing new places reminded me how much there was to explore in the world. I started saying yes to things I would have avoided before, trying unfamiliar foods, joining co-workers for group activities, even striking up conversations with strangers on flights. Each little experience chipped away at the self-doubt I'd been carrying. Rediscovering fitness. Being on the road also forced me to rethink how I approach my health. I couldn't rely on a strict gym schedule or meal prepping at home anymore, so I had to get creative. I started with simple things, like taking the stairs instead of the elevator or going for walks in new cities. Then I worked my way up to hotel gym workouts and bodyweight exercises I could do in my room. It wasn't about perfection, it was about consistency. And slowly, I started losing weight again. Momentum builds confidence. The more progress I made, the more confident I felt. By the time I turned 30, I was back on track physically, emotionally, and professionally. I'd learned new skills, built better habits, and started to feel like myself again. But then, just as everything seemed to be falling into place, the pandemic hit. When the world shut down. The pandemic turned my life upside down as it did for so many others. The travel stopped, the gym routines fell apart, and the isolation set in. Being stuck at home with nowhere to go and nothing to do brought back all my old habits. I started gaining weight again and the self-loathing crept back in. It felt like I was right back where I'd started. By mid-2021, I was at a breaking point. The pandemic had taken its toll on me in every way possible. Mentally, physically, emotionally. I'd gained back most of the weight I'd worked so hard to lose. I felt disconnected from the world, and my motivation was at an all-time low. But one thing kept me going, the thought that I'd come back from this place before. I'd done it once with boxing, and I could do it again. Taking the first step, after getting vaccinated, I decided it was time to make a change. I started looking around for gyms in my area, and came across a local kickboxing gym. I didn't know much about kickboxing, but it sounded intense, and that's exactly what I needed, something to push me out of my comfort zone. Walking into that gym for the first time felt eerily similar to when I started boxing years earlier, intimidating, chaotic, and overwhelming. The trainers were yelling instructions, the sound of bags being hit echoed through the room, and everyone seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Meanwhile, I stood there, overweight and out of shape, wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. Starting over, again. The first few sessions were brutal. I could barely keep up with the warm-ups, let alone the actual drills. My legs burned from all the kicks. My arms felt like jelly after the pad work, and my heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. But there was something about kickboxing that hooked me. It wasn't just about the workout, it was about the challenge. Every class pushed me to my limits, but it also gave me something to focus on, something to work toward. And for the first time in a long time, I started to feel alive again. Progress, one punch at a time. The pounds started coming off again, slowly but surely. More importantly, my confidence came back. I began to see progress not just in my weight loss, but in my skills. My punches were sharper, my kicks more precise, and I started to feel like I actually belonged in that gym. There's something incredibly empowering about kickboxing. It's not just about physical strength, it's about mental toughness. Every time I landed a perfect combination or powered through a grueling drill, I proved to myself that I was stronger than I thought. A new sense of purpose. Kickboxing didn't just transform my body, it transformed my mindset. I stopped focusing on the setbacks and started celebrating the progress. I learned to embrace the process, even when it was hard, because I knew it was leading me somewhere better. The consistency I found in the gym began to spill over into other areas of my life. I worked harder at my job, built better routines, and started to genuinely enjoy waking up every morning. By the end of 2021, I was in the best shape I'd been in years. I even got a promotion at work, which felt like icing on the cake. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, setting my sights higher. By the time I turned 32, I wasn't just training for fitness anymore. I wanted more. That's when I made the decision to start preparing for my first amateur kickboxing fight. It's a goal that scares me, no doubt about it, but it's also a reminder of how far I've come, from a 25-year-old guy who was just existing to someone who's actively pursuing his passion and pushing himself in ways he never thought possible. As I sit here now reflecting on everything I've been through, it feels surreal. At 32 years old, I'm in the best shape of my life, I have a solid career, and I'm gearing up for my first amateur kickboxing fight. If you'd told 25-year-old me this is where I'd be, I would have laughed and said, yeah, right. The thing is, the journey hasn't been easy, and it hasn't been linear. There were setbacks, self-doubt, and moments when I thought about giving up. But through it all, I've learned some powerful lessons that I want to share. It's never too late to start over. When I was 25, I thought I was grown up. I thought my life was set, that I'd miss my chance to do something meaningful. But the truth is, 25 is so young, and 30 is young. Even 40 or 50 is young if you're willing to take a chance on yourself. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. Life is long, and it's full of opportunities to pivot, start over, and redefine yourself. Progress isn't a straight line. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn is that progress isn't linear. You're going to have setbacks, you're going to fall off the wagon, and that's okay. What matters isn't how many times you fall, it's how many times you get back up. Each time I started over, I came back a little stronger, a little wiser, and a little more determined. 3. Find something that lights you up. For me, it was boxing and later kickboxing. For you, it might be something completely different. Art, music, hiking, cooking, whatever. The key is to find something that makes you feel alive, something you look forward to doing even on your hardest days. That passion can be a powerful anchor, helping you stay grounded and focused no matter what life throws at you. Small changes add up. When I first started this journey, I didn't overhaul my life all at once. I started with small steps, joining a gym, switching departments at work, saying yes to new experiences. Those little decisions, as insignificant as they seemed at the time, eventually led to big transformations. It's a reminder that you don't have to do everything all at once. Just start with one small change and let it build from there. The best version of yourself is always ahead of you. I thought I'd grown up at 25, but the truth is, I've grown up all over again in the years since. I've learned more about myself in the past 7 years than I ever thought possible, and I know there's still so much more to discover. I can't wait to see who I'll be at 42, or 52, or 62. Life is a constant process of growth and evolution, and that's what makes it so exciting. The takeaway: seize the moment. If there's one thing I hope you take away from my story, it's this. You're never too old, too stuck, or too far gone to make a change. Your life isn't set in stone, and you have more power than you realize to shape your future. So take that first step. Join the gym, switch careers, start a new hobby. Whatever it is that's been tugging at your heart, go for it. Because trust me, the journey is worth it.